The reason that I want to share my testimony with you today is because a couple of days ago, I turned 26 years old. And also, 2 years ago on that date, I was baptized there in that tub. Yes, and you know, my story is one definitely of overcoming. Definitely. But I can't take any credit for it because it was all God. And you know, there are people today who are asking, where's the God that parted the Red Sea? Where's the God that did these incredible miracle signs and wonders? And I'm telling you, he's still here today. And what he did with me is a miracle of that size. That's the size of what he did with me. So you know, when I was growing up, my mom was very Catholic and my dad was an atheist. So you can only imagine that was not, maybe in some ways, the best fit, you know, as far as values. And I love both of them with all my heart, and I always wanted to please them. But it's kind of hard to do that when there's conflicting beliefs, you know. And I grew up all my life going to church, Catholic church, and then I went to Methodist church for a little bit. As we moved around the world, different countries, different states and cities, only military kids usually relate to me for that. But my dad was actually an engineer. But yeah, as we moved around, I wanted to find, because the faith of my mother is the strongest faith that I know. And I'm not just saying that because she's my mother. And she's right there. But you know, over time, I think she realized that there was some aspect of that song we were singing this morning of the religion was kind of getting in the way, you know. And as a young person in this country, I think a lot of you who have been through it, you know, you might grow up in the church, but the world is telling you a whole different thing. And it's really easy to get carried away because, you know, you don't want to be that weird person that is like waiting till marriage or not doing drugs or not doing the things that the kids around you are doing. And I would say I held off pretty well until the end of high school. And at that point, you know, moving from Ohio to Portland, I would say was the biggest culture shock of my life. I'm sure, I don't know if any of y'all have been to the West Coast. Raise your hand if you've been to the West Coast. Yeah, so even if you haven't, you probably get an idea of the culture over there. You know, I always joke that in the Midwest, people ask you the first question, what church do you go to? But over there, they ask you, what strain of weed do you smoke? Because that's just how normal it is to smoke weed over there. And so basically, after losing myself because of, you know, you start out with saying, no, I'm just going to try it this one time, you know, just this one time. And then you end up finding that, you know, they say weed isn't addictive, but it really is, because eventually it can become a habit. Like at first you're doing it with your friends, same with the drinking, you know, you're doing it with your friends in college, everybody's doing it, it's fine, it's normal. All of a sudden you find yourself doing it just by yourself because you're overwhelmed, you don't know how to cope with your emotions, and you know, you don't want to go to your parents because you're ashamed of the decisions that you have made, and so you're just trying to make life work by yourself, you know. And I think that the biggest lie that the enemy has convinced our culture of is that he doesn't exist. First of all, he convinces you that he doesn't exist, or secondly, everybody thinks that he's the red guy with the red horns, so you think that you're going to see him and you're going to know it's him. And I would never say yes to him, but that's not who he is at all, you know, because it's not a physical thing. We can't see him, just like the Holy Spirit, you know. You can feel the presence. Right now they call it bad vibes, you know, auras, chakras, whatever you want, but it really is the devil. And it really is the devil, you know, tempting you to go to the things that are normal right now in this world, but are not, you know. And witchcraft has become completely mainstream, you know, and it looks cute and it looks glittery and sparkly and fun. So why wouldn't you try to align your chakras with the, you know, little rocks? Or why wouldn't you try to, you know, do astrology or all these things that are so normalized in culture? But when you find out the origins of where those things come from, it's all rooted in witchcraft and paganism, and you're really vulnerable as a young person because you're hungry, you want something to believe in, but you're like, I don't want the God of the Bible because that's the one my parents always told me what to do, what not to do, and I don't want rules. And the lie in American culture is that freedom is found by doing whatever the heck you want. And guess what? That's a lie from the pits of hell, because when you do whatever you want, it leads you to the places where your flesh, which is naturally sinful, and sinful, that's the other word that gets thrown around all the time and is weaponized, and people are like, sin, ooh, that's scary, you know, oh, they're telling me I'm going to hell, ooh, sin, scary, I'm gonna stay away from that, you know. But in reality, sin is just the nature that we're born with, which means that we're gonna be naturally greedy, we're gonna be naturally making decisions that are self-satisfying, or that we think are self-satisfying in our limited human understanding. But God's understanding, God's wisdom is much higher, but we cannot access it when we're living for ourselves. And so right now the movement is for this Gen Z is like self-love is really just self-worship, and self-pity is really just another form of self-narcissism, right? When in reality, the reason why we have to die to the flesh, to sin, and to the world is to be born again of the Spirit, so that He can lead us, so that instead of, you know, Buddhists, they call it enlightenment, going to the next level, ego death. But really, you have to continue to meditate to keep it. But when you have Christ in your heart for real, you never have to, He's never gonna leave you. He's never gonna leave you. He's never gonna leave you. And so the thing that happened was that I had to go through all these things, right? Like, you know, your parents, they teach you growing up, when you grow up in the church, they teach you, hey, don't do this, you know, and eventually if you go and do your own thing, which I had to learn the hard way, right? Spent 6 years going from bad to worse, right? From like trying weed to ending up addicted, from starting out with like relationships to all of a sudden, you know, finding myself, when you're a young woman, right? When you're a young woman, it's so conflicting because, you know, the church will tell you, like, wait till marriage, and then they don't tell you how to do it. Nobody tells you how to do it. They just tell you do it. And nobody wants to talk about it, right? Just keep your legs closed. But then, you know, you have the first boy that has a crush on you, and all your friends around you, they tell you your value, the world tells you your value as a woman is in how many men are interested on you. If you don't have boys in your DMs, then you're not cute. If you're not getting likes on your pictures, then you're not pretty. And if you're not posting in bikinis, then nobody's gonna like you, right? But then in the church, they're telling you like, no, dress head to toe because, you know, you gotta protect yourself. You gotta protect yourself. But they don't tell you how to do it. And then the same thing with young men, right? Like, we're not teaching young men like the value of waiting until marriage. Why? That was the question nobody answered me. Why? Why was I supposed to wait till marriage? Because if you're gonna do something like that, you need a motivation. That's not an easy ask. Why am I doing this thing? And I never had the answer before, and I'm not saying that's a good excuse, right? But I didn't have the answer, and I had to find out the hard way, because the wages of sin is death, right? And also, God will not be mocked. You reap what you sow. And so when people say, oh, wait, but the consequence of sin is death, but you didn't die. You're standing right here, right now. Yeah, that's by the grace of God, because I almost done killed myself. Straight up. And this generation, Gen Z, the epidemic of suicidality is on the rise. You want to know why? It's because people don't know who they are. It's because we have an identity issue. And that's why there's an increase in the LGBT community, myself having been a part of it. Right? That's why I fell for that deceitfulness, right? And that's very controversial, right? Because people are going to say immediately, whoa, don't touch that subject because, you know, you're going to push people away. Well, guess what? I'm not trying to push people away. I'm trying to push people in. I'm trying to push people in to the kingdom, to the glory of God. Because why has the church decided that LGBT is the only ones that we're not willing to welcome in through the door, right? Because every other sin under the sun is acceptable in this place, right? We're willing to welcome adultery, addiction, anything else, but LGBT, now you stay out the door now. You stay out the door now. You're not welcome in the kingdom of heaven. Who are you to judge? Who are you to judge? The church is keeping the people away that need Him the most. Right? Because when I was because as a young woman, when you start to give yourself to men, right, guess what? Men will never want to tell you this to your face, but your value goes down in their sight. And one day you're going to want to get married. And guess what? The man that wants to get married is going to care what your past was like, right? He's going to care that you protected yourself for him. So the boys that are telling you, if you don't do this because it means you don't love me, that's a lie from the pits of hell. That's not love. That's not love. That's not the love of God. That's not the love of God, because the man of God, the one who has God in his heart, he knows why it's important to wait. Why? Because when two people are joined together, they become one. And guess what? Then when y'all break up over and over, you're training your brain to get used to divorce. You're training your brain to get used to breaking up and starting over and over again, instead of waiting for the one so that you can be one together forever. right? And that's why fornication is a sin. God isn't doing that to slut shame you. He's not telling you to slut shame you. He's telling you to protect you because he's a loving father. He's a loving father. He wants to protect you from young men who don't know what they're doing either because they think they're exempt from it. But guess what? If you're a young man and you're doing that thing or you're watching pornography online, you're training your brain to satisfy yourself from something else that isn't your wife. And that's why we have so much adultery in this country and the divorce rates are so high, because self-control is not a value that we are teaching young people anymore, because self-control keeps you in safety. It's for your own good. It's for your own safety, so that you don't have to end up crying or having to face the consequences of your actions, which if you don't feel right away, it's going to come eventually one way or the other. It's going to come eventually one way or the other. So anyways, yeah, I went through it because the young men, you know, once you start giving yourself, they're going to treat you like you're not wifey material. They're going to treat you like you're whatever. And then eventually you're like, why are only bad guys dating me? Why don't I ever get a good guy? Well, it's because you're not making them wait. It's because you're not proving your worth is more than what they're willing to give you, which is what you doing at 12 a.m. at midnight on Instagram or whatever, you know? And so then you start to think, well, maybe women are better. So you start to date women, right? Because everybody's saying, like, if you're not having a good time with men, well, maybe women is the way to go, you know? And then you think, oh, now I'm bisexual. And then I think, oh, it all makes sense, you know? Because, you know, since I was a little girl, I always found girls more interesting. I must have been born this way, you know? Oh, yeah. And then I'm a lesbian because I hate men so much that I'm just going to date women. And then I realized that I'm not getting respect as a woman because of how I'm dressing. So maybe if I'm a man, then I'll get the respect that I need. Now I'm transgender. Because, and now really, you know, regardless of the argument of whether it's a choice or not, the reality is the reason why so many LGBT people are having suicidality problems, myself included, almost killed myself, only survived by the grace of God. I survived an attempt straight up, and God was the one that saved me, right? And the only reason that LGBT suicide rates are higher is because it's even a worse identity crisis, because you're basing your identity on who you're interested in dating. So it doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. If your whole identity is in the dating world, right? That's not who you are. That's who you're interested in. That's not who you are. It doesn't matter if you're gay or straight. That's not who you are. That's who you're interested in. If your identity is based on, you know, I'm a woman or I'm transgender, I want to become a man, that's not who you are. That's what you want to look like. This physical body is temporary. It don't matter if you want to dress like a dude or a girl. This is temporary. The kingdom of heaven is eternal. That's where we're heading. Why are you spending all this money to look like a dude or to look like a plastic surgery girl? Because let's be real, girls getting the BBL and the boobs is the same thing as a guy getting a transgender surgery. It doesn't matter. If you're focusing so much on your appearance, you're not looking at your soul. What is inside of your spirit that's causing you to want to base your identity on what you look like? Why did you believe the lie that what you look like is your worth, that that's who you are? Because who you are is the inside of you. Who you are is the spirit that God formed inside of your mother's womb. Who you are is who God knitted before you were born. He knew you by name. Before you were born, he called you by name. And he said, that is my child. And it doesn't matter how old you are, you're always going to be a child of God. Because inside all of us is a broken little girl or a broken little boy who didn't get everything that they needed because our parents, they do the best they can do, but they are human and they're not perfect. Okay, so everything that you were missing in your childhood, the kingdom of heaven, the God of heaven can give it to you. But do you trust him to give it to you? Are you willing to open your heart and say, okay, God, I'm willing to receive what you have for me, but it's going to take turning your life around. It's going to change maybe your friend group. Maybe you're going to have to leave your friend group. Maybe you're going to have to leave the state where you live. Maybe you're going to have to leave the job that you're in. Maybe you're going to have to go to a lower income. Maybe you're going to have to go, because he didn't say that life with him was going to be with no troubles, but he said that life with him, he was going to get you through the troubles. That's the difference. He was going to get you through it, right? So when you're tired of doing it on your own after all that time, all you've got to do is say, God, I give my life to you. And it had to take all of that for me to say one day, because my mom called me and she said, after 6 years of praying, and this church, everybody that was here 6 years ago was praying with her every single Sunday, while she saw me posting crazy things online, being completely out of my mind, half naked on the internet, and she was praying for me with everybody in this church. And it took 6 years. It took 6 years of intercession. 6 years of intercession for God to say, I'm going to go and leave the 99 and go get the one. It took 6 years for God to say. So if you have prodigal sons and daughters in this room, God is bringing them back. This is the year of the prodigal sons and daughters. God is bringing them back. If God brought me out of the darkness, he can do anything. He can do anything. He can bring anyone out of the darkness, okay? Because then on that, there was one day, I didn't speak to her for 2 years because I said, Jesus hates gays, and so I don't want to hear about your Jesus. And if you tell me about your Jesus one more time, I'm going to block you. And she said, Jesus loves you, and I blocked her for 2 years. I didn't speak to the woman that birthed me for 2 years because I was so caught up in the world. 2 years that she was crying every single night, interceding on my behalf that God would have mercy on me. And please, God, go and get my daughter because I don't know how much longer she's going to be alive the way she's going, the people she's hanging with. Please, God. And she thought God wasn't hearing her because I was going from bad to worse. But God was hearing every single prayer. God was hearing every single prayer. Yeah, that's right. God was hearing every single prayer. Yes, he was. And it was 6 years later when I had my hair cut this short. I had my full closet like a dude. I was calling myself Hide and everything like that. And I was thinking about the next steps for me. Yeah. And it was on that year that God said, enough is enough. He didn't let me cross a line that he knew I would never forgive myself for. Because had I taken the hormones, had I done the surgeries, everything, I would have never forgiven myself for that. It's already hard enough forgiving myself for the pain I put my mother through and my whole family. It's already hard enough forgiving myself for the other people I harmed because I led them astray, because I told them that that was going to make them feel better, that was going to make them feel free. And now I see my other LGBT friends having the same problems and still wanting to kill themselves because that's not the answer. Because they don't have God in their hearts. Because they don't have God in their hearts. That's why they feel rejected. They feel rejected by society, but it's because God never rejected them and he's never rejected anybody. It's the people that turn away from him and tell him, I don't want you. I don't want you because you don't want me, but that's not true. And it was on this one day 6 years ago when I looked like a guy and everything, and she called me one day and she said, hey, I know you don't want to hear about Jesus, but I'm worried about your soul. Can you at least try Hinduism or something? Like, you just got to meditate or something. You got to just try to get sober. I don't even care at this point. Just try something. And I told her, Mom, stop telling me what to do or I'm going to block you again. And she told me, daughter, I feel like I'm dying and I just want you to be okay and I just want to pass on my wisdom to you. That's all I want. I just love you and I want to pass on my wisdom to you. That's all I want. And I said, oh my God, you're so dramatic. I hung up. All of a sudden, God hit me and he gave me a vision. He gave me a vision where I saw all the pain my mother had been through since she was a child, things she'd never told me about, and growing up and with my father and after the divorce and everything and the parts that I had contributed with my actions. And I had a gut-wrenching pain like I was dying. And I felt like that's how my mom felt spiritually. She was dying because of my actions. And then I saw another vision which there was two yoke in the front, right? The ox in the front, and she was one of them, and the other one was supposed to be my father. But he was never a believer, and he's never prayed a single prayer for us in his whole life. So my mother was by herself. There was nobody next to her. And in the back of the carriage was my father, my two siblings, and myself. And she was carrying the spiritual weight of the whole family with her prayers. She was carrying the spiritual weight of the whole family with her prayers. And she was tired, and she was about to fall. And Jesus kept saying, let me carry it with you. But she would let him for some parts of the ride, and then she'd say, I can do it alone. Because she was taught from when she was young that she should do everything alone, that she can't trust nobody. But God was saying, I want to help you. But there was still an empty spot for another human to be interceding for the family. Do not underestimate the intercession, the power of the intercession of your prayers. Do not underestimate it. And there was that spot, and God showed me in the vision when I saw this that I was supposed to get up there because I was the oldest daughter. So what are you doing wasting your time? You're supposed to be spiritually responsible. Get up there and pray with your mother. You're supposed to be up there carrying the family because your father's not ready yet, and he's not going to do it. And so I finally understood what God was saying, and I knew it was probably the God of the Bible, even though I was so angry at men because I was such a hyper-feminist and so angry at the things that I had witnessed the girls around me experience because of the same thing, because of putting themselves in vulnerable positions with men that were not supposed to happen, right, before marriage. Things that were not supposed to happen. And I'm not blaming them because, again, there's accountability that does need to happen. Young men do need to be raised up in the word and the truth as well. But it's a two-way street. It's the young man and the woman. It's a two-way street. It's a two-way street. But, you use confirmation bias and you say all these guys are trash, all that stuff. But, you know, I got down on my knees for the first time in 8 years on that day when she called me, and I said, it was a cloudy day, I was in Oregon, and I said, God, if you're real, show me, and I'll do anything you want me to do for the rest of my life, because I want my mother to live. I don't care if I die, I don't care if I live, God knows that, but I just need her to live, because if she dies, I'm not ready yet. I'm not ready yet. And then I felt a bright light, like a warm light, cover me. And it was like the first time I ever felt peace in my life. And I knew it was him. And I knew it was him. And it was like the same peace that I'd had in my mother's womb that I couldn't even remember. And the words he said to me was, keep going. And I knew what that meant was because I had already been sober for a month and I was going to Weed Anonymous. And then I knew the other thing was to stop dating because that was hurting me. And I needed to be alone. And I said, okay, God, I'll do it. And I thought it was going to be only for a couple months. Little did I know, here would be 2 years later, still sober, still celibate, and praising the Lord, and praising the Lord. Little did I know that he was going to bring me this far. Little did I know that somebody who was bedbound from depression would be working 40 hours a week, a full-time job, and praising the Lord every Sunday, and praying morning and night to the God of the Bible, the one and true living God. Little did I know what he was going to do with my life, but he can do exceedingly and abundantly beyond what you can ask or imagine. What no eye has seen, what no ear has heard, is what the Lord has prepared for those who love him. That's what the Lord has prepared. So, yes, he did all that. And then I came here, I got baptized on the day of my birthday. I said, Mom, I had $500 to my name. I quit my job. I left my friends. I left my circle in Oregon because I knew I can't be sober there because it smells like weed on every corner. And I said, God, I got to move. And I said, I'm going to go to Missouri, where I said every day since my mother came here, I said, why are you there? That's a farm town and we're city people. What are you doing? Why are we going there? But God humbles you. God humbles you because pride is before the fall. So what you say, I'm never going to live in Missouri. I'm never going to live there. And God said, you're going to live there. You're going to live there. Yeah. And I got rid of all my crap. I got rid of all my junk, $500 to my name, 2 suitcases and a cat. And I flew over here and I said, Mom, can I come back, please? And she said, yeah. She said, yeah. And there was a youth pastor from Colombia as well who preached the gospel to me. So I got to thank God for using him as an answered prayer as well. Because in the middle of the transition, when I was deciding whether to give my life to Jesus or not, he was the last thing that helped me to decide. Because I told him, okay, I understand now why I should be sober. I understand now why I should be celibate. But I can't change this LGBT thing. So how can I give my life to God? How can he accept me with this thing in the middle? And he said, what you do is you trust him. Because just like he explained to you the first 2 things, why it wasn't good for your soul, he'll explain to you the third one. But don't let that get in the way, because if you're already celibate, it don't matter which gender you date. You're not dating anybody anyways. So just put that to the side and let him deal with it. And he did. And he did. And it took him a couple years, but I just want to thank this house because the house of prayer, everybody that prayed for me all those years and everybody that interceded. I want to thank Pastor Aaron. I want to thank the worship team because the worship in this space is what fills the atmosphere, the presence of the Holy Spirit. I've seen people here get baptized spontaneously. I've seen people give their lives to Jesus. I've seen people here be set free from all sorts of demons. And so I just praise God for this space and that we can be free in him, because true freedom is found in him, not in the world. So I praise God for it, and thank you for letting me share, because it's the first time I've ever done it and my mom's telling me I need to stop, so thank you. But